It's the end of 2024, the most wonderful time of the year, and it's Spotify Wrapped season, baby. But 2024 isn't just any old Wrapped year. No, it marks a decade of Spotify Wrapped, technically speaking. And in honor of this major music milestone, I'm going to be going through the evolution of Spotify Wrapped year by year from a product, user, and design perspective, and then ranking them. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Victoria. I'm a product designer with a background in marketing, advertising, and branding. Let's get into the origins of Wrapped. Spotify Wrapped began in 2015, although back then it wasn't called Wrapped yet. At the time, it was titled Spotify's Year in Music. It looked a little bit something like this, and although it wasn't called Wrapped yet, it had all the hallmarks that we know as Wrapped today. It had the minutes you listen to music, how many different artists you listen to, how many different soundtracks you listen to, and your top 5 music artists and songs. All the main data points associated with the Wrapped without the Wrapped title or branding yet. And I call this the origin of Wrapped because if you go look at all Spotify's press releases, this is the point that they cite as the beginning of Wrapped as we know it, even though it wasn't called that yet. How you could view your year in music at the time is you went to spotify.com/2015, and that's how you could review your year in music. Back then, Spotify was a lot smaller of a product and had a lot less users, so this year in music didn't make huge cultural waves, but a lot of publications did pick up on the thing and say, hey, this is worth something checking out, and Spotify took note of that and later ran with it with Wrapped in 2016. 2016 is when Wrapped becomes Wrapped. It's also worth noting that 2016 is the year Instagram started doing its Instagram Stories feature. So now people could share their Spotify Wrapped on their stories, and this is kind of where Wrapped started to blow up in 2016 and 2017. It looked a little bit something like this. You can see that in the visuals here, and that's like where those squiggly lines, those dot kind of motifs are happening because this was very much trending across the entire wider internet. The name Wrapped in 2016 also comes from the idea of like wrapping up your year. What was it like? What it consisted of? We're wrapping it all here and giving you your music taste. You could view your Wrapped in 2016 the same way you could as in 2015. Now, 2017 is where Wrapped really starts to become Wrapped as we know it today. This was the first year that you could download and save your Spotify Wrapped in a little square image format that you could share on social media that recapped all your music listening habits from your top genre, how many minutes you listen, your top songs, and your top artists. They also heavily leaned into the Christmas theme, like wrapped up year, it's a gift, here's a Christmas holiday theme for you. Very red, very pink, very green, with a little bit of kind of confetti-like pieces. You're giving a wrapped gift, a wrapped data set of like, here's a present for your end of year holiday times of your music listening. I gotta give 2017 here some points though, because this is kind of Wrapped as we know it, where it's like, oh, this is really taking form as to what we see later on. In 2018 though, Spotify Wrapped kicks it up a notch and steps back from that holiday theming into a more generic, bright, bold, festive New Year's type of theming. We're talking high contrast color, big bold numbers, very willing to stand out on social media and on those stories. When I think of Spotify Wrapped, this is the year I think of. You can download and share the image format in the same way you could last year, and you can also look up Spotify Wrapped in the same way in as previous years. This is when I remember people being like, yes, I'm so pumped for Wrapped. What is Wrapped? I love Wrapped. Everyone loved it. 2019 is when Wrapped takes it up a notch and takes it super seriously by integrating Wrapped into the app for the first time ever. They also really capitalize on data visualization this year, putting a lot more of your information into graph format. This makes it a lot more engaging, interesting, and unique, not only with the bright, bold colors that you can see, but it's also incredibly shareable and it's cool to look at. This is the first year they also add something new. They're comparing your last Spotify year's Wrapped to 2019. And since 2019 is the end of the teens era, they also make a point to have a best music of the decade and kind of wrapping up all of your decades Wrapped. So it's not just 2019 Wrapped, it's all of the teens kind of wrapped up for you. It was incredibly nostalgic, not just for 2019, but the whole teens decade. This was really cool, fun, and bold because it also utilized that same Instagram Stories feature. So we're leaning into that kind of stories tapping style, both in the app and making it incredibly shareable, also for the first time in a Instagram in stories like size image, and sharing it on social media, no longer the square on the stories. Full screen, baby. Now, 2020 was the year of the pandemic, so I wouldn't say Spotify went crazy this year, but nobody did. The world was crazy enough. I think they were trying to make it as calm as possible because this was a hard year for everyone, and I think it would have been incredibly difficult for the Spotify team to really cook up something new when they were, like everyone else, like displaced all over the world. They had to readjust their whole setup and just kind of get together, and it's crazy that they were able to still get something out and make it look good. They utilize this whole gradient motif throughout, which I think looks really nice and is very inclusive. Like all the feelings you could feel in 2020, where it's just like, it's a range of emotions. Like we got a range of colors here for you, nothing too like crazy though, because like I said, the year had been crazy enough. But this was a notable year because they had a ton of engagement and a ton of re-downloads of their app, because this was the first time Spotify had a feature where you could do quizzes guessing about your own data points while going through your own Spotify Wrap. So you could take like BuzzFeed style quizzes about yourself. Tons of people re-downloaded Spotify just for this. First time we're really seeing some really big interactivity inside the app. This is also the first time they decided to include podcast data points, and they showed it to you in your Wrapped as well. 2021 is where Wrapped kind of starts getting a lot more attention and also a lot more criticism for the first time, because after, 2020, people had a little bit more time and brain space to focus on other things in 2021. So when 2021 came out with their Spotify Wrapped, this is largely regarded as the worstly designed Spotify Wrapped. It's definitely something. It's definitely anti-design. There are lots of skewing. There's a lot of like legibility issues in terms of like the color contrast and also stretching type and just icons. It's a very bold move and a very bold choice, although I will say all the colors and icons here still show up well on social media, on your stories. It is bright and bold and you will see it. Despite all the criticisms in terms of like anti-design and legibility issues, this was still an interesting year for Wrapped because they decided to include more unique features this year. This year they did away with the quizzes but did the aura, which is kind of a mood-inspired combining like your feels of your music, and that's how you get your aura. You could share that as well and see who else had the same kind of aura as you did. This year, the other unique feature was a year as a movie soundtrack, which kind of compiled like all your music tastes and said, hey, this was kind of what your soundtrack would be if your life was a movie based on your taste. The last key feature they had that they introduced this year was Wrapped Blended, where you could like connect with your other friends and blend your wraps. If you ask me, this is a foreshadowing to what we see to jams later on now. I know this year gets a lot of hate, but I don't really hate it. They really included some cool features here, but they do better in 2022 and 2023. Speaking of those cool features, in 2022, this is when we start to get into like a motion system with Spotify Wrapped. This is the first time that's kind of happened, and they have a ton of articles on their own publication detailing the process of making this kind of motion system and all these shapes and pieces, how they move together, and their philosophy as to how those pieces all combine. It is very, very shape oriented. I really appreciate what they did with all this system, because the whole Spotify Wrapped of 2022 is very fluid, and I can appreciate all the animations that are happening. They did improve upon the criticisms from the year before, and everything is a lot more legible. The two new features of this year were your audio day, which is kind of like your song of the morning, your song of the midday, and the song of the night. So like your day as these 3 songs. This is also the year that your top artists, you could also see a personalized message from them. So my top artist being Taylor Swift, I got a personalized message from Taylor saying, hey, thanks for listening to my music. It kind of enforces that fan relationship and that whole parasocial idea, and like you connecting with the artists themselves. While I do really like the design and fluidness here, I do have an issue with the final card of all of those geometric shape patterns kind of conflicting with the album art, because all of those shapes kind of surround that album art, your top album or slash artist. And that's really conflicting and really distracting, because it's like, oh, especially if the cover was something different, I could see where those would clash. Moving closer and closer to the present, we are now in 2023, and I'm just gonna say it straight up. 2023 is my favorite Spotify Wrapped year. This is the best one to me. I love this one. I love the bright colors, I love the anti-design thing, this hyper digitalization. I love all of it. The design system combined with the visuals and the movement system that they've kind of finessed over the time, chef's kiss. There was also a ton of features in 2023 that really kind of hit the nail on the head of what Spotify Wrapped has been going for the last couple of years. If we think back to auras, we also can come back to the 2023 and Me cards, which again are very shareable onto stories, and they kind of categorize like your music listening taste. Like if you're a curator or you're a trendsetter type of thing, that's what these cards are for. And they're really well designed, they're very cool, and they're hitting on the whole tarot card kind of phenomenon that's happening in 2023. We also get the genre stack, which is really fun, had a cool motion system with it as well, and kind of breaks down your music. Soundtown was also really interesting because it kind of took all of your information and signed like where you would be if you were a town. Like, are you San Francisco? Are you New York? Are you LA? You Orlando? What's your vibe? Where is your music taste? Like, also consolidated in the world. The data visualization that I love from 2023 is your months in listening. So my top artist was Taylor Swift, as you can see in all these images. And, you know, I like that I can see that I listened to her most in July and where I kind of had my dips. I think this is really fun. It's like, oh, this is like the vibe throughout the year, and I can totally see that. That's cool. Also makes you very nostalgic for the year and like reminisce on what happened during that year. 2024 is where AI starts to take over Spotify Wrapped. Now, there were some criticisms from the previous year of it being too bright, like all those colors burning people's eyes. So they really toned it down in 2024. There's a lot less color, there's a lot less contrast. You're utilizing a gradient motif that is somewhat similar to the one we saw in 2020, and is utilizing in terms of shapes just squares, rectangles, and the number 2 and 4 for 24. They're very repetitive throughout the whole thing, and there's not anything kind of crazy. It's very similar throughout the whole Wrapped sequence. This is the year they also decided to ditch top albums and your top genres, and they went away with genres altogether and did a AI generated your genre thing. Example, mine's a Pink Pilates Princess Strut phase, and I had a friend with a mukbang lo-fi pop face, whatever the hell that means. They also did away with a lot of data visualization, so there's no like graphs and things like that really happening throughout at all. It's all just numbers based. Instead of doing special features like they did with the cards or the auras or the soundtrack days or the movie life soundtracks or day in music type of thing, they decided to go with an AI generated podcast this year, which has received a ton of criticism due to its like mistakes that are consistently being seen by users that are not the most accurate. In this year, they also introduced stats for audiobooks, since this year Spotify introduced audiobooks as a main component to their offerings in their product. All of which brings us to now, the present, as this video is being filmed in 2024. A whole decade of Spotify Wrapped, recapping all their unique features and where they have evolved throughout their design, and as they have integrated into the overall zeitgeist as a cultural moment. I think now's the time for the ranking portion, as we've gotten to see Spotify Wrapped evolve and see all their unique offerings year by year. We're gonna go in order of the Wrapped evolution. So we're gonna start with 2015. And 2015 is it's a bomb because it got Wrapped started as we know it. It has all the main data points, all those stats that we love to see. It got everything going. Is there anything crazy happening design-wise? No. But that got us here where we are today. All the core features that we know and love started in 2015. 2016. Now 2016, I'm gonna go with it's sometimes a skip. Sometimes a skip. If I were to have this like on my Spotify like list, and if we were to shuffle, I'm gonna sometimes skip Spotify 2016 because the design is not super interesting to me. I don't remember it very well. It is very much of its era of like BuzzFeed time. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad. It has really that evolution. We're taking it to Wrapped, but 2016 is not Wrapped to me. 2017 though, that's when it starts to become a contender, because for me 2017 is like top artist tier. And I'll tell you why, because when I think of like Spotify Wrapped, this is when I start to like really remember it. And of course, like I was in the air. I was a 16-year-old in 2016. Okay, I'm just aging myself a little bit there, but like I was in the times, I was on the social medias, I had Spotify, I've been on Spotify since 2016. So like I know I was there. It wasn't popping off in 2016, but in 2017 it was really popping off, and you had to be one of those people who had it on your story. And I remember it, and I still have it saved. 2018 is what I think of when I think Spotify Wrapped. 2018 is Spotify Wrapped. When I think of Spotify, this is what I think of. I think of those bold colors, that yellow, that purple. That's what I think of. Those artists like covers. Yes. Also, this was the first time like they really nailed down like the shared image part of it. And I loved how they had the shared image. Like, that was a good image. Here's mine. I really liked it. Like, I love that cover. They got the structure down, and that's kind of what we see throughout the rest of rap. 2019 is also Grammy tier, if you ask me, because 2019, that's when it starts to become in the app. This is when we're seeing these all cool data visualizations that we don't see as many other years, but this is when it really starts. And 2019 was also cool because it didn't just wrap up 2019, it wrapped up an entire decade of music, an entire decade of listening. It's in the app. You don't have to go to the webpage anymore, and you can tap through it like stories. It's just like everything else that you're like engaging with all the time on media. We love 2019 Wrapped. Now 2020, it's a bop because I love the quizzes feature that they had. I remember that. I remember interacting with it. I remember engaging with it, and I think that's really fun. The more interactivity we have in our app landscape, I think the better, because that gets people on the app engaging with it, using it, and the more they're on there, the more they're probably going to use your product. And that shows with the data, because tons and tons of users re-downloaded Spotify or were on Spotify when that dropped in 2020. Of course, we were all at home doing nothing, so that probably added to the engagement level, but it was fun and it was engaging, and everyone loves a good quiz. Now 2021, this is where I might get a little controversial, because I know 2021 in terms of their design choices is not exactly like hallmarked as like the best, like the greatest design. But I think what 2021 is going for is kind of that splashy moment. So that's why I'm going to put it in top artist, because it got people engaged, it got people talking, even if it was a little kind of ugly. I think it was on purpose. Like, these are all flashy designs. They're meant to be a flash in the pan. This is not like Spotify's branding 24/7 year round, but it does make for a great moment. And I think that's purposeful, and I think it's very strategic, and I think who thought of that did a good idea, and I see what they were going for. Do I think the icons stretched out are a little ugly? Yes. But do I like that text that's like pushed together in the genres? I do kind of like it for the anti-designness of it. Just the idea of it, I just like. There are some legibility issues though, so for that, it cannot go in the Grammys. It cannot. And they also are doing some cool and fun features in 2021. We see some foreshadowing with 2021, like I said earlier, Brad Summer, definitely inspired by 2021 Spotify Wrapped. Spotify Jam Sessions, definitely inspired by Wrapped Blended. Also, the auras are cool. Auras are cool. I don't understand it, but they're cool. 2022. Now, I love the fluidity of 2022. It is gorgeous, beautiful animation, motion design. There's no arguing that. But I do think it's sometimes very conflicting, and it is a little bit overly busy, especially with the color choices they made in this year. And I don't like that distracting from the actual music, like covers, like in the cover that you share on your story. This is what it looks like. I don't like that that's competing with my queen and icon, Taylor Swift. Of course, I'm kidding a little bit, but like I want the cover or the artist to be front and center, not necessarily that kind of feature. I would have liked that on more of the outskirts as like a border or something. But I do like it. It's just a lot. Also, the features that are happening in 2022 aren't as stand out as some of the other ones. Audio Day, not as good as a music soundtrack, not as good as Auras. We do have some cool visualization, but not as cool as some other ones. So that's why it's sometimes a skip. It doesn't really stand out to me. But when I'm thinking about 2023 rap, this is a Grammy. This is a top tier Grammy. I love 2023. Look, like, because we're on like the digital age. We're so like consumed by all of our digital products. I love the hyper like internetism of the design. I like how bold it is. And I love all the features and data visualizations. They hit with every single feature here. It's both interactive and highly personal, which I think is what Wrapped is really going for. They nailed a lot of the things that they have been trying to get really well in 2023. And it all looks good. It's all accessible. Like those colors are bright, but they're not conflicting in terms of typography, and you can read everything and you can understand all of it. Also, we're really harping back on a lot of the great data visualization that we kind of did in 2019. More data visualization is great. More graphs. People understand that and they can connect with it. Genre sandwich, just great. Soundtown's super fun. That really hits on the community. 2024 Wrapped. If you saw on my LinkedIn, you knew that I thought it was a flop. I posted that I think it's a flop. And I go over a whole host of reasons why I think 2024 is a flop in comparison to the rest of these, and is like kind of my least favorite. Design-wise, 2015 is probably my least favorite, but we have to give credit where credit's due because that's the foundation of the rest of Wrap that we see. But 2024 doesn't do a lot of things new that are interesting to the user. Now, they might be interesting to Spotify, the corporation, the company, the CEOs, the C-suite, but to the actual users, we're not seeing any cool data visualization. We're not seeing cool graphs. You take away our genres altogether. It takes away an entire aspect of community that people can engage upon and say, hi, I also love rock too. Like I also like pop and I had a similar sandwich or like a similar breakdown. We love these same things. It's just a lot of numbers and it's kind of boring. And we're also seeing a repeat in terms of visuals here. Like we're seeing gradients being used on all of 2024, and we've already used gradients in 2020 as like the main thing. And you could say in 2022 we did a lot of repeats in terms of patterns and squares, and that they count on that repeat motion thing in 2024. And I think the motion is solid. It's very fluid and it's nice looking motion, and the gradients themselves are fine, but like in combination and with just the basic information that we're seeing here, it's not as interesting or engaging, nor as interactive as any of the previous ones since we've had the app. And some of the things that make 2017 and 2018 above 2024 are the fact that this was the first time you could share it and it was like so highly regarded on social media. In 2024, everyone was really excited, and then it was just disappointment. You get a whole year to kind of make this up, and then when it finally comes, it's just like a flop that's not great. And that's a letdown for the users as well. No special features here besides like the AI stuff. And it's had a lot of issues. So we're ditching stuff that were cornerstones and we're not adding anything new that people are loving. We're taking a lot of that community aspect away, and we're hyper personalizing in a way that feels impersonal while also leaning on AI, which people are not loving. So there's just a lot of conflict here in 2024, like visually, interactively for the user, just as a whole campaign. So that's my ranking, and if you want to make your own ranking, I will go ahead and leave this tier list down below, and maybe I'll update it next year so we can rank that one in here and like with some more space and time see where 2024 actually lasts and stands, because you know there is some recency bias happening here, and I was disappointed, and everyone that's come up to me IRL has been like, I don't like this, what do you think? And I'm like, there's better years. There are better years. And there's a lot of ways Spotify could have improved with 2024, but I think they need to take note of what happened in 2023 because that was really well done. I'm not going to hate on the design teams or any of these teams that made up any of these rap projects, because in all honesty, they're all still phenomenal. They're all really good, but we're comparing, apples to apples here. Of like, what of our apples, which one's the best apple and which one's the worst apple? There's no like true flop, except for maybe this year. And I think that comes down to a lot of things relating to outside reasons, with AI growing in popularity and a lot of corporations wanting to use that, and taking that opportunity. And there's been a lot of layoffs at Spotify this year, so I don't think their teams are really as robust as they have been in previous years, which if you don't have the team and the resources, then how can you expect to perform in the best way possible? So that's my ranking. That's Spotify as it has evolved. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this one, you can check out another one of mine over here. And if you liked all this content altogether, you can subscribe over here. Don't forget to like down below. And if you have a different opinion, anything else I missed or anything like that, please comment it down below. I would love to hear what you thought of this video and what was your top artist for 2024. I want to know. Who are you guys listening to? What do you guys think? And what do you think of 2024 Wrapped? Comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!